Welcome to the Tenant Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson here with my good friend. That's right. You know him as quite possibly the most interesting man in the world, coming to you from the road of enchantment in South Dakota, my partner, Wes Brown.
Todd, how you doing, my friend? Oh my God, it's another week and another great artist. So, I can't wait. How you been?
I love your exuberance. Thanks for bringing it tonight.
Yeah. I should have a little, I'll be like Tony Robbins, have a little mini tramp in the back. And then, of course, the ice water submerged tank. That's a mandatory. And then you're ready to rock and roll. Do you know he did that?
I have no idea. I don't even know anything about Tony Robbins.
Oh my God.
I've seen people post about, walking across the fire thing or whatever.
Yeah. Down in his South Pacific Island resort. But in Florida, if you ever watch I'm Not Your Guru, it shows him going in his little submersion pool. And it's just a square and he dives right in. It's like, I think it's like ice water, and just invigorates him. And he's jumping on like a mini tramp before he goes on stage just to get himself all worked up. That's what we need to do.
Stage?
Huh?
He does this on stage?
Well, no, this is off stage.
Oh, okay.
And the dump tank is at his house, I think, in Florida. Anyway, or maybe it's on stage. I don't know. It looked like it was his backyard.
You definitely need one of those.
I do, because sometimes I don't have this energy. And then sometimes it's like, dude, take a pill because you're like out of control.
I know that was a couple episodes ago.
Right.
Like, where's this coming from?
I don't know. I tap into it every now and then.
I know. Well, you should do it more.
There you go. I will. So how you been?
I've been good.
Good.
I'm excited to talk with our guest this evening. Weather here in Colorado has been wonderful. I think it's going to get hot, though. They're calling for a heat wave that's going to hit the Southwest through this weekend. So brace yourself, except it'll all be gone by the time this airs. But hey,
we're supposed to break a record, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right, which is it's way too hot too early in the year for that.
And so for the people that are just turning in, oh my God, it was really hot. I think we broke some records. No, this is all pre-recorded. You couldn't stand it if we were live.
Oh my God.
All right.
Hey, let's get on with it. Don't forget to follow us on social media, on our Instagram at Tenant Podcast, and our Tenant page on Facebook. And of course, our website, tenantpodcast.com, where you can access both our current and past episodes. All right. Tonight, we have a phenomenally brilliant artist. She is a Denver-based mixed media and environmental artist that has been showing her work for over 20 years. She is a member of Next Gallery, and her work centers around her love of nature and her concern for our planet. You can check out her stunning work at her website, AdrienneDeLoe.com, and that's AdrienneDeLoe.com, and her Instagram is ADeLoeArt. Welcome to the program, Adrienne.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. This has been a long time coming.
It's true. I can't remember exactly when you first reached out to me, but it's been a while.
I think it was really at the beginning of us starting this podcast because, I'm always doing art reconnaissance, as our friend Bob Ragland would call it. And I remember coming across your work and thinking, oh my God, this is just out of this world. It's mind blowing. And for people that are going right now to Adrienne's Instagram and her website, you see exactly what I'm talking about. I remember bringing it up on my computer and my wife was in the room at the time. And she's like, wow, that's amazing. Like, that's really interesting, because I've never seen anything like it, which is something that we're always seeking out, right? Like things that I've never seen or experienced.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, it's unique, I'd say.
You recently got back from a trip from California, right?
Yeah, our first trip in 3 years, because, pandemic. And my husband and I's number one love is to travel and to spend time in nature. It's where I gather my inspiration from. And so we were so fortunate to get to go see the redwoods. And it just was incredible. The inspiration that I found there was just kind of mind blowing. So it was a wonderful experience.
Had that been on your bucket list for a while?
We were planning. I read a book called The Overstory, which is all about the redwoods. It has a very environmental bent to it as well. And ever since I read that book, I had wanted to go. And so we started planning 3 years ago for that trip. I kind of blew my knee out and had to have surgery. And then it was pandemic right after that. So we had to totally scrap the whole thing. And so now we finally got to go do it.
Good for you.
Best about that trip?
The day that we got to spend in the actual redwoods, because we did a lot of driving just to get there from San Francisco. And the beaches were beautiful. We took the 101, so we spent a lot of time on the coastline. And just collecting things in the sand on the beach was incredible. But there's nothing that compares to that day that we spent in the redwoods.
What kind of things were you collecting on the trip?
Specimens for my work. I found all kinds of cool stuff like, crab shells, and I collected a bunch of algae that I'm messing around with right now. Cool looking shells. It's a whole treasure trove. It's like my art. It's, nature is my art store. So.
Yeah. And your art is amazing. So can you just take a minute and explain it to our listeners, how you would describe your art?
Yeah. I think I really started in this vein of my art. After my husband and I we quit our jobs, put all of our stuff in storage, and went on a 3.5-month trip around the world. That was in 2008. And one of the places that we went was New Zealand. And the plant life there is just incredible. And I collected, a ton of different seed pods and, pressed a bunch of different flowers and things like that. And when we got back, that's when I really started incorporating all the specimens that I had collected into my work. And that's kind of where I've headed and where I am now. I get things from all over the place. I order things from, beaches in Europe and find things on Etsy and eBay. I collect things myself. Other people in Colorado collect things for me. And then I always try to make kind of like hybrids of things. So, I'll take a cicada and add porcupine quills to it. And it becomes kind of this fantastical creature that isn't real, but is also based in nature's reality.
Is there a name for this kind of art? Is there anybody else doing what you're doing?
So I always say I'm a bio artist.
Okay.
A lot of people are experimenting with bio art right now. And that could be a collaboration with, with an insect. For instance, I'm working on a few pieces right now where I'm collecting leaves that leaf miners have made little patterns in, and taking that and blowing it up really big. And, because it's kind of beautiful and amazing art that these insects make. So it's really, it's a collaboration between myself and nature.
Yeah. And then my other question, especially coming from New Zealand, did you have a hard time getting seed pods in the United States? Or did you smuggle it in?
No, it's interesting. So we were in India before we got to New Zealand.
Right.
And I had some things that I had collected in India, and a sniffer dog came and targeted me because New Zealand has extremely strict rules on what you can bring in terms of, anything that's biological. If you had a banana that you got in a different country and you were eating it on the plane, that's that cannot come into the country. So they confiscated basically everything I collected in India.
Geez, I bet you they had some cool stuff in India.
Yeah.
Plant life's got to be cool there.
Yeah.
Would you say it's more exotic in India or New Zealand as far as the plant life?
I found cooler things that appealed to me more in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But India has amazing wildlife. I've seen a beetle in India that was this big. It's just, it's incredible. And, a lot of India is so overpopulated though, that you kind of miss out on what the native wildlife would have been like.
Right. Yeah. When I was in Okinawa, we were looking for suits, and a friend of mine put a suit on, then he took the suit off, and there was a centipede, probably at least 6 to 8 inches long, on his shoulder. Then that kind of cured me of the insect thing. So more power to you. But yeah, it kind of was creepy. I know you went to college, but did you study entomology?
No. So I've always had a fascination with nature. My parents were really, into spending a lot of time in the mountains. So as kids, my sister and I spent a ton of time in the Colorado mountains and also in Utah and Canyonlands. So those two things were a huge inspiration for me. My dad's a horticulturist, so I grew up around plants. I had my own little garden plot when I was a kid that my parents had given to me so I could, cultivate my own plants. And so I think that instilled, a great love of nature for me.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I understand the whole nature thing, but where does this interest in insects come from? Was that just playing in the garden as a little girl and seeing all the variety of creatures that were there?
I think so, but I also think there's I'm a huge science fiction fan. And I think H.R. Geiger and the Aliens movies had a huge influence on me. And those creatures are very insect-like. So I think that sci-fi and horror play into all of this love of nature, this love of science, this love of horror and science fiction. And I feel like insects in a lot of ways incorporate all of that stuff.
For a lot of people, for sure.
Yeah.
Or at least a lot of people that live in my house. So,
right.
Bugs don't freak me out, but I know a lot of people do. And so these creations, these new creatures that you make, how are they typically received? Is it interesting to walk around when you have a show and listen to people, what they have to say about the work?
Yeah, for whatever reason, it seems like insects are really in style and popular right now. And so I've had a few people be like, oh my God, that's so creepy, but that's okay because that's what I kind of am going for in a way. But mostly it's that people think they're beautiful. And I do get some concern about the well-being of the insects and things like that. A lot of people are concerned of how did you acquire this insect and things like that. And so I often find myself explaining to people that they come from insect aviaries, mostly in Indonesia, and that these places are actually conserving insect biodiversity by breeding them in captivity. And it also creates an industry for developing countries in the sense that they're not causing deforestation as much as they might with a different kind of industry. So it's creating revenue that's less detrimental to the environment.
It's creating jobs that are sustainable and not having an environmental impact.
Yes.
And, if they didn't know a little bit about who you are, I think that's a legitimate question, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I have no problem explaining because I think it's an important thing to get educated on. Just for posterity, these insect aviaries are providing scientists, museums, artists with these specimens that who knows how long they're going to be around. And that, that's just the reality of things. And so to acquire them is to and my whole thing is I just want to preserve as much as I can.
So prior to doing that trip that you took with your husband for 3.5 months, you said,
mm-hmm.
Was this the kind of work that you were doing, or did the work come out of doing all those travels?
I was definitely always a nature-based artist. I can remember even as a kid, going into our backyard and picking berries and leaves and stuff and creating paintings out of the pigments from them. And so, nature it's always been my inspiration and has just brought me to even wanting to be an artist in the first place. So I think I was definitely always on that track. It didn't really solidify until after we took that trip in terms of especially my style.
You talked about being in India, you talked about, how what you were seeing in New Zealand really resonated with you. Was there one moment or one instance that was kind of the catalyst that you just had that kind of aha moment where you're like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do with this stuff when I get home?
Yeah, I think so. I had collected all these seed pods and I hadn't really worked all that much in 3D before that trip. I think that what really solidified it was just seeing all these incredible seed pods really is what did it. And how amazing the patterns were and what an amazing artist nature is. That really led the way for me to come into where I am now.
And so what kind of plant life, what kind of seed pods were these that really were interesting to you?
Everything's just so different than anything we have here. We have some cool stuff in Colorado, but it's definitely not a mecca for really awesome plant life by any means. And everything's just bigger and so much more intricate and bright and, tropical. And so you get these variations of things that we just don't have here.
They kind of somewhat isolated in evolutionary matters too, aren't they? That whole area is different than some of the other ecologies in the surrounding area, I believe.
Yeah. And that's why they're so wary of people bringing other stuff in, because they've had invasive species that have totally like clogged up their waterways and really messed with their whole ecosystem. So that's why they're just like, no, like we had spent some time on a farm in India, and when we got to New Zealand, they were like, have you been on any farms? And if so, where are the shoes that you wore? Like, that's how strict they are about invasive species.
Wow. Yeah. So I just looked up an interesting fact that 40% of the insect life is in danger of extinction. So the work you're doing to bring knowledge to people, I think, is huge.
Yeah, it's huge. We've already lost a considerable amount of the biomass of insects. And, they're one of the species that we need. It's not an option. If there's not insects, there's not plants, especially if there's not pollinators. So it's a huge, huge problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has a domino effect, right? It affects everything in our ecosystem.
Exactly.
Along with the insects, we're losing all these different species of birds. And I can't remember, I read an article recently where they were talking about, the number of birds we had in the 1970s to where we are now. And it's an incredible loss that we're experiencing.
Yeah. And that's why, at least there's things in place now, like the North American Migratory Bird Act, which is preventing people from, collecting birds or hunting birds, or even if you find like a bird bone laying on the ground, it's actually illegal to pick up. So
feathers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a huge illegal feather trade just because of these laws are in place now. But at least we do have those laws.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic for the future? Do you think we can turn this around?
I think it is probably going to be the biggest challenge that has ever faced humankind. I'm not sure where it's going to go. It has the potential to be the most catastrophic thing that humanity has ever faced. So unless things start to change drastically soon, I think we're going to be in real trouble.
Yeah. I concur. I think don't you, Todd?
Yeah, I think we're standing on that precipice. And if we can't get a handle on it, the Earth's going to be here way after we're gone. And probably some of the animal and definitely the plant life, it'll reclaim itself.
That's right. And it might be changed because of what we've done, but that gives me a little bit of solace, at least. Like, the planet will carry on.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, not to be too fatalistic about, the human race, but we did this to ourselves. And if we can't see ourselves out of it, well, you reap what you sow, right?
Exactly.
Outside of traveling, which, obviously you said that it's a huge inspiration. Where else do you, in nature, where else do you get inspiration from?
Just growing my own plants. I love, and spending time, closer to home, just in the mountains, and really anywhere. There's secret little places and parks and beautiful places all over Colorado. We have a, kind of hidden little green belt by our house that I like to go down. And, I found all kinds of cool stuff down there. So for me, it's just about like finding the beauty in the small things. And what I discover in my own garden constantly has me in a state of awe.
Having a garden, I think, is one of the most joyous things that you can do.
Yes. Yeah, I swear it got me through the pandemic. It was like my savior during that time.
Yeah, I could see that.
I agree. Walking out in my backyard, we always have a garden every year, and walking out in the backyard every day and walking through the garden, picking weeds, weeding and seeing what's, fruiting, what's coming up. It's a fun experience.
It is. And it's kind of, even the process of like weeding, it's very meditative, and planting and observing, all of that to me is very meditative.
So your dad being a horticulturalist, thank you. I assume that you got to learn a lot about plants, even if you hadn't been interested, I'm sure just through osmosis and hanging around your dad and your parents that you learned a lot.
Definitely. I don't ever really do any research or anything like that. I've been growing my own garden for, 15 years. I kind of just do it intuitively, honestly. Like, I just experiment and mess around and see what works and what doesn't. And, that's also part of my process. Everything I do is very experimental.
In your garden, do you like tomato plants and that kind of stuff, or do you plant exotic plants as well, or more native to this area? Or what's your kind of, what's the word? So
Garden philosophy.
There you go. I'll take that one. Wow, we're real two of a pair tonight, aren't we?
We are. You know what? Maybe we should log off and just Adrienne can just roll with it.
I'll just delete all our tracks and she'll just be talking to herself. But anyway, so you plant exotic plants as well?
No, I am 100% water-wise and native plants. We don't have a lawn at all in our front yard. It's all xeriscaped. I actually did go to horticulture school myself for a while when I thought maybe I wanted a career change. And then I was like, yeah, no, I'm an artist. This is not going to work. And so I do know, a bit about everything that's going to be water-wise, everything that's going to survive in this climate. And that's really important to me. I don't want to ever use water that I don't need to use. Oh. And then the other thing is that I grow food and I have a surplus every year and I share with my friends, or if I have even too much for that, I'll put out a basket in my front yard for neighbors to come. And then if there's still more, I'll take it to a food bank.
Nice. That's awesome. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I really kind of expect you to say that you grow some like exotic plants just for use. It
would take too much time and too much effort, and there would be too much strain on the environment. So if I do want something more exotic, I'll just order it from like a dried plant supplier or something like that.
Oh, cool.
Now, you've been a fine artist for a while now, full-time artist, but you started in the commercial realm. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I have a degree in multimedia, and it was kind of a hybrid commercial/fine art degree, which was pretty cool because I got to really structure my own program. And most of the people in my program were purely commercial art, but I had the opportunity to go and make it kind of a half and half situation. So after I graduated, I worked as a graphic designer for many, many years. And, while I was doing that, I was still creating and showing. And then we went on our trip, and when we got back, I went for some contract design work. And then I started my own graphic design firm, which I ran for, again, several years. And I was also making jewelry at the time too. So I started a jewelry design business where I pressed, real flowers and put them into jewelry. And then I think I ran that for like 8 years, maybe. And then I just really felt like my heart, what I've always wanted and, where my heart was at was in my artwork. And so we were in a position that we could make that happen. Things started taking off for me, and I've been full-time art for a while now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's so great to hear.
Yeah.
It's not easy though, right? I mean, it takes a while to get there, and everybody, we know this from talking to so many artists, that everybody does this thing a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It took me 20 years to get into a position where I could be a full-time artist and where I had a big enough following that I could continue to support, all the supplies that I need and also make some money as well. Yeah. Everybody has a different road to get there. Mine just happened to be funding through graphic design and then a jewelry business. And that's what, paved my path a little bit.
So you must have started your graphic design business when you were like, what, 8?
I was thinking the same thing, Todd.
Yeah, right. No, I think I was like 30.
And that's a whole different world, right? It's a whole different ball of wax when you're dealing with, it's creative on a certain level, but at the same time, you have to answer to somebody else. It's not like you're just doing your own work, right?
Correct. And you have to have the education really behind it because it's not art. There's a very specific set of rules that go along with graphic design, whereas art is way more interpretive. And, graphic design really asks you to think about what colors mean and how people respond to them, what images mean and how people respond to them. And so it's a practice that is wildly different than art.
But as with everything that influences you, I assume that that commercial art background influences in some way your fine art. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it actually gave me the tools that I feel so thankful to have the tools that I need to be able to promote myself. I was a web designer for a while. And so I've got this set of skills that I don't have to, pay someone else to do for me. So it's been really, really beneficial to have that commercial art component.
How else has it influenced your artwork?
I think there's a certain perfection to my work. I'm kind of a perfectionist. And so it's so detailed and it's so, I want to say like clean. And I think that comes from my design background. There's not a whole lot of like extra stuff. And I think just that meticulousness is something that design taught me how to do. And I've transferred it into the fine arts.
I totally see that in your work. And I appreciate that. I'm always paying attention to clean design. I love clean design, even though we're talking insects and things that are, for lack of a better description, pokey things.
Yeah. Right? Yep. I like to call them stabbers.
Stabbers. There you go. I love that. Yeah. I mean, working with porcupine quills and various things. I think I saw some of these pieces have like sea urchin spines. Mm-hmm. It's all very clean. Mm-hmm. It makes me want to touch it.
Yeah. But trust me, you don't want to. Porcupine quills are dangerous, and I've had several lodged in my fingers.
Wow. Nothing so terrible that you weren't able to get them out yourself, though, right?
No, but I will tell you a really sad story. My dog got into some of them.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So that was a bad scene and I felt awful, but we took her to the vet and they pulled him out and she was fine. But now I am very, very careful about where I leave my porcupine quills.
Probably one of the few dogs that ever got porcupine quills in their, I assume it was in her face, right?
Yeah, it was in her mouth.
In her mouth? Yeah. That didn't tangle with a porcupine, right?
Yep. The vet was like, this is a dangerous hobby you've got going on here. I was like, yeah.
I want to take a moment and let's talk about some pieces real quick. I'll pull up and share my screen here. I want to talk about this most recent piece that I saw. This one here. And now this is a detailed shot that I'm looking at on Instagram. Actually, I think you just posted this on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
That is absolutely amazing.
Is there a name beautiful for that one by chance?
No, because it was a commission.
Okay.
So I had a post go viral recently, and I think I got about 15 commissions from it, and it was similar to this one. And so everyone just kind of went wild over these vertebrae cicadas that I was creating. And so this is one of those commissions. And she said, I want some of this. These are rattlesnake vertebrae in the middle, and then fish vertebrae on the outside. And she said, I had never done one with both kinds of vertebrae before. And so she said, I want one with both kinds. And so, I was like, okay, all right, this might be weird and really challenging. And then I did it and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And so one cool thing about commissions is that they kind of push me in directions that maybe I wouldn't have thought about initially.
So what's the red circles or red pieces in it?
So these were actually inspired by something called bird's nest fungi. And I'm extremely into like fungi right now. So anything mushrooms, slime mold, all that kind of stuff. So I started making these based on that. And these are just little beads without a hole in them.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of supply places that you can get these. And so, I've collected them over the years and haven't used them a whole ton, but she said, I want, red beads in it. And so it was really all her idea. And I just kind of implemented it.
So there's basically 5 elements to this, right? Or maybe 4. The cicada, the rattlesnake vertebrae, fish vertebrae, and then the red beads. Is there anything hidden that we're not seeing that's part of this as well?
Just a lot of glue.
A lot of glue.
Yep.
That is really cool.
It is really cool. And so what kind of glue do you have to use to adhere bone to bone, or, the little beads and that sort of thing? Is there a special type of glue that you have to use?
It's interesting because of my jewelry making background, I knew a lot about adhesives and that kind of stuff. And so E6000 is like every artist's go-to for gluing things that are slick surfaced, things that are really tiny, things that are fragile. And so that's what I mostly use all the time. And then I seal everything in an acrylic sealant when I'm finished. And it also gets a coating of UV, because what's really important to me is that these are preserved and that they last as long as they possibly can.
It's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So when you're sealing it, is that something that you spray on, or how does that work?
So I have a liquid brush on UV. It's like a UV paper glue, basically. It's archival. And then I use pouring medium, which really seals everything up. And so basically I'll put the piece in a frame, adhere the wings to make them, really smooth. And then I pour that acrylic sealant over, and that creates, an airtight, everything tight sealant no water, no air can get in there. And so it's preserved for hopefully forever.
So is this after the sealant was put on?
No, this one hasn't been sealed at all yet. I usually do photographs before I seal, because the coating can sometimes make them harder to photograph.
Okay.
Because of the shininess that you get from it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that is just absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. I would have never, in my wildest dreams, come up with this whole idea of, adhering mammal and fish vertebrae or reptilian vertebrae with insects. It's just an amazing piece.
Thank you. Yeah, I just love the idea of these kind of, it also has to do with mutations and what chemicals in our environment are doing to certain species, and calling attention to the fact that wildlife is changing because of us.
Yeah.
So how has the work evolved over time, would you say?
It's become much more refined, much more detailed. I used to work bigger, I'd say. And I think it's getting more and more detailed all the time. And I do work large. I work on deer skulls and bigger things like that. So, but I think that it's become more clean and more polished.
And the rattlesnake vertebrae, is it something that you found, or is this something you ordered?
I ordered those.
Okay. I was just curious.
I'm not
if you were chasing snakes in the prairie or whatever.
No.
But, now here, my little sweet, you're going to be in my next art piece. Sorry, Todd.
That's fine. No, the insect thing, that's fine by me. The snake thing, if you said that would freak me out. I'm not a big fan of snakes, so.
Neither is my husband. And so when I order these big long chains of snake vertebrae, he's like, oh my God.
That's awesome.
What draws you to the whole cicada?
Honestly, I didn't really know that much about them. And then I think I must have ordered a few specimens or something. And I discovered that their wings are so sturdy and easy to work with. Whereas butterflies, you touch them and they fall apart, which I do work with butterflies sometimes, but cicadas are so easy to work with. And then I just started learning more about them, and I'm just fascinated. I feel like they're these crazy little flying aliens that only come around every, 7 to 17 years or something like that. And they live underground for that amount of time and then emerge into these just really cool organisms.
And noisy.
Yeah. And we don't have a whole ton of them here. We do have the 7-year ones here. I think we might have 3-year ones as well. But I have a friend on the East Coast, and during the, Brood X emergence, she collected a ton of them, stuck them in a cooler, and overnighted them to me. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. So for a while, I had a freezer full of Brood X cicadas.
So what's in your package? Oh my God. Yeah, cicadas.
Yep.
Yeah, I lived in Iowa, and of course I was there during one of their hatches, and man, at night it was just incredibly loud, or even during the day, and it's only for a short period of time, and then they do their thing and die off.
Yep, they live very short lifespans once they emerge.
Yeah.
We'll talk about another piece here, and this one's really interesting. I did not get to see this when it was on display, I don't believe.
Oh, did you see the last show?
I didn't get to see the last show.
Mm-hmm.
But this piece here, this looks like a larger piece, yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not exactly sure of the dimensions, but maybe 24 inches tall.
Okay. And this is called Sacred Blue. If you're looking for it, it's not too far down on Adrienne's Instagram. Talk about this piece a little bit.
So we do a themed show at Next every 6 weeks, I believe. We work together to come up with themes for the year. And one of them this year was blue. So this is kind of a new vein that I've been working in terms of more, I call them my nature collages. And so, this one's got, I think they're raccoon jaw, the cicada, and then there's a little weevil down at the bottom, and then plant elements as well. And I was really interested I've been really interested in these kind of monochromatic pieces. And so when the opportunity to show in the blue show came along, I was excited to make this piece. It's called Sacred Blue just because I feel like all the elements that I work with are sacred pieces of nature, and I want to honor them through my work.
That is one thing that I definitely feel when I've seen your stuff online, and then I have seen some of your pieces at Next, because they always have that community gallery. Mm-hmm. I don't think I caught your last show. Is that reverence? It'll make you stop in your tracks when you see this work. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something that's really important to me, to handle these elements that I'm working with the utmost care and reverence, because they were living at one time and they've left behind kind of these beautiful encasements. And so I always, I want to handle them with care.
What is the background that I'm seeing with the white background with the blue in it? What is that? So
that's called fluid acrylic painting. And I've been messing around with it for a while, just to use as background and stuff like that. But I really like the way that this particular technique is turning out, because they look like cells. And I've always been incredibly interested in, microscopic stuff. My next big thing is I really want to buy like a photographic microscope so I can take pictures of cells. But this technique offers kind of that same feeling that, cells have. And so it kind of just ties it all together in terms of life in its bigger forms and life in smaller forms.
So you photograph all your pieces and you do it really well.
Yeah.
I assume that you had some kind of photography training, or you have at least experimented enough that you've gotten extremely good at it. Do you love doing macro photography?
I love doing macro photography. I do have a little bit of a photo background. Back when I got my first degree in graphic design, I have an associate's degree as well. We weren't even into the realm of digital photography yet. So we were in dark rooms and, I hated it so much. And then when digital photography came around, I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to be doing. And, I got myself some macro lenses, and I just shoot with my iPhone, and I have some, pretty good quality lenses for it. And so, I've been doing it for years and years, and I never really thought about, it being a serious art thing. But I think my next show is going to be macro photography.
Oh, that'll be interesting. That'll be cool. Yeah. I'm excited to see that.
Yeah. And I'll have the specimen that I shot, which might be, tiny, tiny, tiny. And I'll have that framed and then show what it really looks like through the macro photography.
Yeah.
Right on. Hey, what is this plant at the very top of this piece, the Sacred Blue?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up. I can't remember offhand.
It's really interesting. I mean, it looks like something from another planet.
Yeah. And it's, it's not all the light blue parts on there are parts that I added. So it's not natural per se. It's been definitely added. I added some stuff in there too.
Yeah.
And these are seed pods hanging off the side here.
Yeah, I think those actually came from Colorado. I think that maybe one of my artist friends found those for me. People are just constantly bringing me stuff. So
that's got to be kind of nice. I mean, I'm sure you're inundated with stuff, but at the same time, you just never know what people are going to find and gift you, right?
It's true. And my mother-in-law is just her and my father-in-law collect just the coolest things for me. I have a stack of cow skulls sitting in my shed right now that I'm going to do something with eventually.
Wow. How many are we talking?
I've got to have 10.
Wow.
Yep. So they work with someone down on a ranch in the San Luis Valley. And there's actually a place called the Boneyard where they they put carcasses and then they deteriorate and the skulls are just left.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love this piece. Did you sell this piece when it was?
Nope, it's available.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about pricing, since I just talked about if this piece was available. So how much is this piece, if I can ask?
That one's, I think, $475.
Okay. Right on. And where do your pieces, obviously it depends on the size and how much time and stuff you have into them. Where does the original work of yours start at, and what does it go up to?
It starts at $275. That's usually what I sell just single cicadas for. And then goes up from there. I sold my highest priced piece at my last show, which was $2,300.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you might be a little underpriced.
People tell me that.
Todd, you're not supposed to say that until
I know. We've talked about this before.
Oh my God.
On the podcast, like, hey, don't say that before I get a piece.
Right.
But seriously, for the amount of work that I see, and then I'm imagining, I mean, it's so intricate and I can't imagine the time that you have in some of these pieces, like this one that we're looking at, Sacred Blue. How much time do you think you have in that piece?
I mean, hours and hours. Yeah. It's hard for me to say when people ask that question, because I work on like 10 different things at the same time. And so, I'm not focused on one piece. And so I move back and forth between several, just in one day. And so it's hard for me to ever actually know how much time goes in.
So I got two questions. So how did you come up with the pricing structure? What was it? Was it time-based, or, how did you end up like, okay, here's where I'm going to structure my price range?
Honestly, I think when I started out showing in Denver, I was, pretty young. I was like 22, and I just kind of priced really low because I wasn't known. I wasn't, and then I think it just kind of started going up over the years, and I keep with that trend, and every year I raise a little bit. And it's also a matter of experimenting, like on Instagram, and throwing out a price and seeing what people will pay.
What the market will hold.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. And if it doesn't sell, then I might lower or keep it for a while and then maybe lower. So I think several different factors have gone in, and just experience is one of them.
Do you think things have not sold because they were too cheap, too inexpensive?
I think, maybe some of my like more photographic work that's not too expensive, that's print,
Because I think sometimes, people will see a price and they're like, they don't see the value, or, they think it should have more value. So they're like, well, okay, that's inexpensive. I'm going to move on and go for a bigger piece or whatever. It's kind of a weird question maybe for an artist, but I was just kind of curious.
Yeah. And, I think it's about timing. It's about right place, right time. It's about who your audience is, all those things play a factor into how you price your work.
Yeah. And then how do you think you developed an audience? Do you think they found you, or did you go out and find them, cultivate them? I
think a lot of people found me. I have a pretty decent Instagram following, like 12K right now. And a lot of that came from like the oddities and curiosities crowd, because those are my people.
Right.
And people are into bones and insects, and it's especially if you're into, kind of like witchcrafty stuff, like those are also my people. And so I think it's about finding who your people are and finding that niche, and, and reaching out to them on social media. And then, other people, a lot of people have found me on social media in Colorado and then come to my shows because they found out that, I was close to them. I've had people drive down from like, Wyoming or, Fort Collins to come to shows and stuff. And I think it's all because of social media.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's my second question. So when you're working on a piece, how do you know when to move on? Do you get stuck and then move on to another piece that you're working on?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me in my process, it's important that I don't spend too much time in one place because then I stop being able to see it, and it feels like it's never going to be done and it's not right. And and when I hit that frustration level, that's when it's time to put it down, work on something else for a while and come back to it. And a lot of times when I come back to it, I'll be like, oh, maybe I think this probably is done, as opposed to getting so stuck in my head about making it absolutely incredibly perfect.
Right. Yeah. Going with that, how do you know when a piece is done? When you look at it, what is it? Is there something about it that makes you feel like, oh yeah, I'm done. I don't need to touch this again?
I don't know if I ever actually get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like as I'm hanging a show or as I'm looking at the show after it's hung, I'll notice something and be like, oh, that's really bugging me. I wish I could fix that, but you've got to just let it go.
Right.
That's a difficult thing to make that realization and be able to let it go, I think.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the thought of, working something until you get to that point where you're like, all right, I'm too close to this. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of looking at it. I just need to leave it be for a little bit and move on to something else.
Yep. And coming back to it, I always find more clarity.
And going back to, you hanging a show and seeing something, that you wish you could change or whatever. Have you ever gone back after a show with a piece that possibly didn't find a collector and work it a little bit more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My pieces are hard to rework just because they're sealed in such a way that it's pretty permanent. But I have tons of work that maybe didn't make the cut for a show, and I'll stick it in a drawer, and maybe a year later I'll find it and be like, you know what, this is kind of cool. I think maybe I'll finish this now.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah. I love that you're able to do that, where you're able to just, put something aside and come back to it, after, we're talking about as you're working on pieces, but putting it away long enough that, there's a considerable amount of space between when you were working on it and when you kind of rediscover it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then maybe it might get incorporated into a larger piece, or, I always very much want to use everything that I have and not waste any of it.
Right.
That makes sense.
It's an interesting process because as a photographer, when I'm doing post-production stuff, I just want to be, when I'm done, I just want to be done. I don't want to come back and look at it and retweak it. And so I usually stick to one piece, and when I'm done, I'm done. So that's an interesting thing I think I need to think about, is maybe work on it a little bit and then take a moment, come back a couple of days later, look at it again and see what I could tweak to make it different. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's an interesting process too, because just in terms of intellectually processing your work, it takes you back to where you were, when you were working on that. And then it's kind of how do you take that, that memory and incorporate it into something new?
Are you pretty focused when you're working?
I kind of have ADD. So that's why I work on 10 things at the same time, I think. Because I'll get sick of something after a while. I mean, especially when it's gluing 100 or 200 porcupine quills onto a cicada. So I need variety. I need to change it up pretty frequently.
So I was wondering about that, and you answered that without me having to ask you, do you have ADD or whatever? But I think a lot of artists do, and so. Probably just about every single person we've had on this podcast, has multiple projects going on at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whether it's they just can't stay focused on one thing for a little while, or, it's the techniques that they're utilizing and, they have to move on because they have to let something dry or set up or whatever.
That's a big part of my stuff too. It would be so much faster if I didn't have to let stuff dry for like the whole process to create one cicada piece is probably I'm going to say 10 days to get it all finished up.
Wow. That's a lot of time.
Yeah. And not full days, but the whole process, waiting and all that kind of stuff too.
So then I want to ask you this, prior to starting your project, do you spend time sketching out what design elements you want, or is this all kind of free flow as you're going?
It's totally free flow. If I have an idea, I might do a slight representation just so I don't forget. I honestly feel like the materials direct me in a lot of ways. it's so fascinating because when I'm working with elements from nature, from different species of creatures, there's this magnificent way that they sometimes fit together perfectly. And so I just feel like, a lot of times it just works out and I don't have to like, it's almost like this subconscious thing that I'm doing.
Yeah. You're letting it speak to you in a sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what does a typical day for you look like? Are you working every day?
I try to do at least one art thing every day. I do have some health issues that kind of limit the time that I can spend. I've got a lot of back problems and things like that. So I used to work, 12-hour days sometimes if I was on a deadline and working on a project. And now I've learned to budget my time a lot more. So I work on my pandemic self-portraits book in the morning for usually a couple hours. And then I'll do maybe 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon and try to, work in my garden as well. Cause it's part of the whole process.
These health problems, have they made you kind of reevaluate how not only like time spent working, but also how you go about it? I don't know if you work on a table or, I know some artists, our friend, Valerie Severy, she's cutting out all this paper stuff and she's working on the floor all the time.
Oh yeah.
Did you have to kind of reconstruct how you do things as you've experienced like back pain and that sort of thing?
Yeah, very much so. I'm trying to make things as ergonomic as I possibly can because, I'm looking down at things all the time. And so I've kind of gotten an easel as much as I possibly can, which is difficult with a cicada because they, they're just so fragile and it's much easier to work on a flat surface. But I made myself like this little, like a easel that has tiers on it. So I can set multiple cicadas on it at the same time. And I have a workbench in my basement studio that's, tall now. And so we've, my husband and I have worked hard to make modifications for me that are going to make my life easier.
So have you found that doing the artwork actually helps maybe physical therapy? Like, is it physical therapy for you or not so much?
No, it's the one thing that hurts me the most, honestly.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's been a little tough to, kind of reevaluate, restructure how I do things because of physical limitations. And, for a while I was worried that my career might be over.
Right.
But I've figured out certain things that I can do. I can prop a workstation on my lap while I sit on the couch and work on things there. And it's just a matter of reevaluating and restructuring my expectations for myself. And it's not over. It's just different.
Right. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I admire people like yourself. And we've had a handful of artists on that have had various health situations. A woman that became allergic to the various paints and stuff that she used to paint. Our friend Jen Starling, who has arthritis in her hand, and just see how people negotiate that. And I love when I hear like, hey, that didn't stop me in my tracks. I just had to like figure out a different way of doing it, Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that people don't think about when they're looking at a beautiful piece either, is that, that person behind that's making all that and the toll that it may or may not, but may take on your body, right?
Yep. Yeah. And so I have a condition called spinal stenosis, which is basically where my spinal canal is crushing the nerves that are coming out of my spine. And so there's a lot of, there's also motor issues that go along with that, muscle control kind of stuff. And so, a part of restructuring what I do is letting go of that perfection a little bit too, and giving myself room to make it look a little bit more natural, and not pushing my body to the point where I just can't work for 2 weeks or whatever. So there's been, there's a whole lot physically and intellectually that go into changing how you work.
Makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's not the perfection, right, that makes something beautiful. It's the imperfections,
Mm-hmm. And it's nature. Nature's not perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And something that I experienced recently, I was talking to this guy that works and lives down in the San Luis Valley, and he has this whole food program that he's instituting down there with a co-op and everything in the town of San Luis. Mm-hmm. And I'd never thought about this before, but he was like showing me a ear of corn, and he's like, this is a commercially grown corn, because if it's organic, the rows of kernels are not perfect. That's not the way it actually is in nature. They're kind of jumbled up in a ear of organic corn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I'd never thought about it before. I thought that was really interesting.
There's all kinds of abnormalities in nature, just like in our own bodies. And, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of, isn't it Edward Weston that did the green pepper that was deformed?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it's just like that. You wouldn't find that in Walmart. You'd find that at, a farmer's market.
Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm. Totally.
We talked about the physical challenges that you've had to overcome, but what other challenges as an artist have you experienced and have you had to overcome?
I think when I was younger, it was definitely a struggle. I struggled with confidence a lot. What if this is crap? What if I'm not good? What if I can't do this? What if I don't get to be an artist? Those things can be really stifling when you're a young artist, just, starting out. I think as I got older, I've conquered some of those fears. And so that's, much better now, but I still have those moments. Even as a 20-year career artist, I still have those moments. And I think all artists do. You question, like, is what I'm doing, does it have any relevance? Is there any importance behind what I'm doing?
Yeah, I think a lot of people I think that, like, I take photographs, but it's like, what am I adding that's different? Mm-hmm. What's my voice here, and why would anybody care to look at my stuff? I think what you bring to the table is you're using a medium that is so different than what I would say the vast majority of artists is using. And so it makes your pieces interesting and compelling right out of the box. So, but that whole imposter syndrome can be so debilitating, Yeah.
It makes you question if you should even bother,
Right. Yeah.
But, I think every artist is like that. You've got your good days and you've got your bad days, and you create something that you're really proud of and, makes you happy. And that's great too. And I always find it interesting. Like, I'll have a favorite piece from a body of work or think something is really amazing, and think another thing is just like, okay. And of course the okay thing is like the first thing that sells. It's just, it's a matter of taste.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting what people will gravitate to, right?
Mm-hmm. It is.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've heard that on the podcast where people are like, yeah, I didn't think that was all that, but people just love that piece.
Yeah.
And then, they have this piece over here that they just absolutely adore. And, that they're like, I don't understand why people weren't interested in that, but I love it. And then it becomes like their favorite piece. Right. And then they're like, I don't even know if I'd sell that anymore.
I know. I have a piece that didn't sell from probably 7 years back or so. And I love it. And I just have it now, and I'm not going to try and sell it again because I love it.
Right.
So in those moments where you have that self-doubt, what do you do? What do you do to break yourself out of that? You just give yourself a pep talk, or? I
remind myself that it doesn't really matter, like, if it's good or not, because I love doing it. And it's who I am, and it's what I was meant to do. And if it's not received well, if it doesn't sell, if somebody doesn't like it, that's not what's important about it.
I think that's the perfect answer. Yeah. I really do. We talked to a person, our friend Jen Starling, and she had this piece that didn't sell. She'd had it for a while. She put it in her bathroom, and somehow it was on her Instagram. And another artist friend of ours happened to be scrolling her stuff after she was on the podcast, and reached out to her and bought that piece.
Nice.
After all these years.
Yeah.
We're like, what? So you just never know, right?
Nope,
You just never know.
It's true.
Who would you say is your best support as an artist?
My husband, my family, and my gallery community, for sure.
And how has that been being part of Next Gallery?
It's been incredible. It's a wonderful, amazing group of people. Those of us who've been there for, I've been there for almost 10 years. So there's a small group of us who've been there for a very long time. And we've been through some stuff together for sure. From moving, out of the Navajo Arts District to moving into our new home in 40 West, a building that had tons and tons of challenges. And now finally, hopefully our forever home in the new building in 40 West. And so we've had our trials and our tribulations, but we've stuck together, and it's just a wonderful group of people.
And what have you learned over the course of time being part of that collective?
I think because we all have jobs and we all do, there's no one person who runs Next fully. It's all of us contributing. And I think that just to, have patience with each other and to understand that we're just all doing the best we can. And I think, that inner, those like interpersonal conflicts can, create tension in any group. But we all love the art and care about the art and each other so much that we just make it work. And, all of that stuff takes learning.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful to hear. And your husband, how does he support you?
So we started dating. We've been married for 17 years. We started dating when we were 22. And, I told him kind of early in our relationship, I want to be an artist. And he was just like, all right, you can be an artist. I'll get a job.
Wow.
And, it took a lot of years to get there, but it happened. And he supported me fully throughout all of that. And never once has told me not to do it or, he's a huge supporter of what I do.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
I'm going to try that line on my wife. I want to be an artist tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go.
What's your husband's name?
Ryan.
Shout out to Ryan. Way to go, dude. Yeah, that's really great because I think a lot of times I get a lot of support from my wife, even though I do commercial photography. She's got the real job with the benefits and, and she does stuff that I could never do. So it's nice to have that support and it's great. And it's nice to hear that. We should ask that question more often, actually, because I think there's a lot of artists that, they'd still be doing what they're doing, but it might be in a different, scenario if it wasn't for their significant other, they're, holding their hand along the way, being part of that journey. Yep.
And he puts up with my messes. Oh my God, I make so many messes.
If you don't pick up your porcupine quills.
Yeah.
He's pulling one out of his foot, right?
Yeah,
that's
there's
what I envision.
Holes everywhere, on our kitchen counter.
Oh my God.
We talked a little bit about commissions. You do a lot of those?
Yeah, I have recently. All again, thanks to Instagram. People, I never have anything available because things sell pretty immediately. And so, people will be like, do you have any work left from, Ghosts of the Earth? And I'm like, no, it's sold out. And I'll be like, but go on my Instagram, see what you like. And I can make you whatever you want. So commissions are kind of my bread and butter in a lot of ways.
So is your price structure kind of the same for your commissions, or do you charge a little more? Or
I charge a little more for commissions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if a person wanted to I'm sorry, Todd, but if a person wanted to start a commission with you, what kind of ballpark range would you be looking at, or at least low end ballpark? Where would you begin at? Maybe it
just depends. If it's a small insect, like a weevil or something, $195.
Okay.
And then cicadas are usually around 300. So
yeah, it's still really affordable, and that's wonderful because that allows a large range of people that can actually afford your work.
Yeah. And that's actually always been something that was important to me as well. I never wanted to be this kind of, snobbish artist who charged $1 million for her work. I want art to be accessible to everyone. And I want people to be able to have something in their home that is a representation of the beauty of nature that resonated with them. Like, that's important to me, that they connect not just with my work, but with nature.
Right. Yeah.
What is that process? How does that process usually go? Do people come with ideas of what they want, or they a lot of times just kind of leave it up to you and materials that you have?
So I always tell people, like, they'll be like, is this piece available? And I'll say, no, but I can make something similar. And I'll have them send me like my own Instagram posts of the pieces that they love. And I'll say, I can do this piece, but you can pick whatever, color porcupine quills you want, or you can pick whichever cicada species you'd like. And so a lot of it is kind of mix and match, which is fun. And so it always turns into something that's very specifically for them. And I love having that input from them as well.
So do you have continual input? Do you show them progressions?
Usually I just show the finished piece and before I frame it, because once that's done, it's done. Get approval on that and then do the sealing. Okay.
Because we've had artists that, they had this dialogue all the way through the process. And then sometimes for the person doing the commission, things were like, in their view, were like getting off the rails, and the artist is like, you got to trust me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't show until the insect is finished.
Okay. Yeah. Because sometimes, if you and I were in a conversation about some kind of a piece of art, I might have this expectation, and then you're showing me and I'm like, well, this is kind of not going the way I thought, so it can be a tricky kind of scenario. So
it definitely can be, for sure. Yeah. But that's why it's like, it's like, it's that trust. Like, this is my work. It's not really up for like discussion.
Right.
Like, you've picked what you wanted, and now I'm going to make it for you. So
that's awesome. I love that. It's not up to discussion. I love that. This is my piece of art that you're commissioning, but it's still mine. So you ever, I want to ask if you ever had somebody say, you know what, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be, and I don't like it. Would you is it like, well, you paid it, it's yours, do it what you will? Or are you going to say, you know what, that's fine, I'll keep it and then sell it somewhere else? Or how do you handle that?
That's exactly what I do. I say, let me, so recently in this whole slew of commissions that I've had recently, I used a slightly different cicada than the original. And the woman said, I just really loved that original piece so much. And I said, and I think I was out of that specific kind of cicada. And so I said, let me see what I have and let me see what I can do, because the piece that I made for her was gorgeous. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I just really loved that original piece. And I was just like, I can give this one to somebody else and I'll totally make you a different one. It's like no sweat off my back. So for sure.
Right.
And she appreciated it so much. She said, thank you so much for like working with me on this. You've been lovely to work with. So yeah. I think, I'm not going to be super difficult about things like that.
Right. And, and that'll pay off in dividends, because they'll tell their their friends that, oh my God, I didn't like the species that she picked originally, but man, she worked with me and I love my piece, and come and look at it. And that's always good.
Part of being an artist is, to me, it's a business. I own a business, and customer service is still an important aspect of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from running your own graphic design business, I assume, and having to work with clients, because sometimes, clients can be really difficult.
Oh, graphic design is so much harder than art.
Right? Like in that scenario that you just described, it's probably like, well, this is a walk in the park. I'll just make a different piece and it's all good. Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep.
Whereas if you've done, 10 different mock-ups and they're still like debating which direction they're going, and,
yeah. Or, wanting something that I know is not right for what they are going after. That's the huge hurdle in graphic design.
Yeah.
I want to talk about another piece here. This little guy is just exquisite. There's something about it. It's just so lovely.
Oh yeah. That's cool.
You made this before you went on vacation. Is that mm-hmm. what I read?
Yep. Yeah, I was so excited about the redwoods and about these amazing trees and these pine trees, and I actually found that pine cone in my front yard, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to make a perfect like little cicada body. So I took apart the pine cone and then restructured it all on the cicada.
Yeah. And this is kind of called in a roundabout way in honor of our upcoming trip to the redwoods.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a pine cone with a cicada. It's really cool looking.
Thank you. Yeah, that one sold right away too.
Did it?
Mm-hmm.
I love the lines in the wings, the white lines.
So I've been messing around with a different technique where I paint the back of the wings black, and it just really makes those veins pop.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and there's definitely more pine cone cicadas to come.
That's really cool. I love the geometric shapes of the wings of the vine or the veins in the wings. Yeah. It's really cool looking.
Mm-hmm. They are really cool.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the like that stencil art that our friend in Washington does. Like it looks like little
girl spit.
Yeah, it looks like little roads, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So cool. So you extract the body of the cicada and then adhere this pine cone to it.
So the cicada stays intact, and what I do is dismantle the pine cone, so it's just individual little pieces, and then I put it back together in the same pattern it was in its original form.
Oh my God,
that's crazy!
That is crazy. That is crazy. Like so each. Oh, you can't see my finger pointing.
I see it, Todd.
Thank you, Wes. It's because you share the other half of the brain.
That's right.
So each one of these individual pieces where you see my cursor here, hopefully you can see my cursor. Mm-hmm. Those are individual pieces of the pine cone that you took apart and then you adhered them back together.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Amazing. I love it. That seems like a tedious tedious process. Is it? Maybe sure. Is it? Okay. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, and a lot, I'll have to like let one row dry before I go back in and do another row.
Right.
I had to soak the pine cone first to get it pliable enough to take apart. So yeah, a lot of these things take, sometimes weeks to dismantle and put back together and stuff like that. So
but it really is amazing. And I just, looking at this, it's seamless, right? If I saw this in the gallery or just looking at it on the internet, I would have no idea that was the process.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's really important to me too. I don't ever want anything to look like it doesn't actually exist in nature. I want all my pieces to seem like that could actually be a real organism.
Right.
I want them integrated that seamlessly.
Go ahead, Wes.
No, you go ahead. And then I
was just going to ask how large of a cicada this particular one is.
I think he's got about 5 or 6 inch wingspan.
Okay.
And then is it by itself? Is it like in a box by itself? Or did you do something else to it?
Like for framing it?
Yeah.
For this one, I'm just going to do a white background with a black frame. I haven't framed it yet, but
okay.
I got to frame it and send it out to my customer. But yeah, it'll just be a simple white background with a black frame on it.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and this is one that I will cut out if you don't want to answer it, but it's kind of a heady question. So here we go. So what are you trying to say in this piece?
I think I'm trying to say what I'm always trying to say, which is, number one, I want to call attention to the beauty of nature. I want to help people reconnect with nature because I think it's something that we've lost in a big way. And I want it to be a little bit of a warning as well, that we're getting close to maybe losing some of these things forever. And I want people to know how important that is.
I like that. That's a very good answer. I appreciate that. I was kind of afraid you would be like, well, I don't know. I'm not thinking that way, but
no, it's always that to me. I did a workshop at the Denver Art Museum before the pandemic where it was an insect pinning workshop with real insects. And, I had hydrated them in a crock pot for people to come and use. And I taught them how to pin. And I think the reason that that's so important to me is because I want people to be able to touch nature and interact with it, even if it's in a gallery setting. and to see these amazing insects and how their little parts work. And, once they're hydrated, you can manipulate them and move things, move their legs around and spread their wings. And so part of these workshops that I do is getting people's hands on elements of nature.
Have you ever held a cicada in its living format?
Almost.
Almost.
There was one in a park near our house recently, or no, it was a few years ago. And I was getting so close to like scooping it up, and then my dog came over and then it flew away.
I love that answer though. I thought that's a very compelling answer.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of getting people to like take a moment, look at my art and think about nature, think about where it's going. And I think that message is so important, especially nowadays. So.
Yeah. And I think, I'm toying with the idea of calling my next show Small Things, just because there are so many amazing tiny things going on all around us. If it's, even if it's just cooking food in your kitchen and looking at the plant structures of the things that you're consuming, there's just these amazing patterns exist in almost everything we do.
New Magazine is our media sponsor for the Tenant Podcast. That's NUE. You can follow both the national and the Denver edition of New Magazine on Instagram. The national edition can be found at new_magazine and the Denver edition at new_Denver_magazine. Look to New for compelling stories from the world of art and fashion. Thanks for listening.
I'm Adrienne DeLoe, and you are listening to the Tenant Podcast.
It sounds like the vast majority of the work that you get, whether it be commissions or selling your work, is through social medias. Is that correct?
Yeah, I usually do pretty well at my shows at Next too. I have a lot of people that turn up and want to buy work, and so that's always really nice.
Yeah, that's always nice to have that kind of support group. And I would assume, because you've been doing this for a while, that you have collectors. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Definitely. I have several people who buy things on a fairly regular basis, so that's always really nice too.
And again, is that kind of that curiosity and oddity type group that buys a lot of your stuff?
I think so. A lot of people I've never met, so I don't know much about them. They, just reach out to me and say, I really like this piece, is it available? And so I say, yeah. And then I ship it out to them. And it's kind of cool because I've shipped work all over the world, which is really neat as well. So I think again, and that's all due to social media.
Do people ever take pictures of where they have it hanging and send it to you?
Yeah, for sure.
That's always that'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to reach out to a few people just because I want to see where these pieces landed, because sometimes they don't. And it's always neat to see where they end up.
Yeah.
So is Instagram the main platform that you use to display your work? I know you're on Facebook as well, but do most people find you on Instagram, or what's the preferred platform?
I definitely sell a lot more work on Instagram. But I've had sales through Facebook as well, through my professional artist page, and also just through my network of people on my personal page. So, but I would say the bulk of it is Instagram.
I want to talk about this piece here. This was a commission.
Mm-hmm.
And again, are these cicadas that I'm seeing in the background?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Okay. And then you have porcupine quills that you've colored?
Yes. Uh-huh. These ones I think I bought from somewhere, but I do color them myself as well.
And how hard is it to dye or color a porcupine quill?
It's actually really not hard at all. And what I've been toying with and playing with recently is natural dyes. So I just finished a batch of porcupine quills that I dyed with beets. I went to the grocery store today. I got cabbage, parsley, and blueberries. So those are going to be my next batch of dyes.
Wow.
Right on. So kind of getting back to your roots of when you were a little girl and making, dyes from the natural things that you're finding in the garden, right?
Yeah, I never thought of that. I like that.
That's really cool. Yeah, this piece is absolutely exquisite. It just draws you in with the red and love the color combination of it.
Yeah, I think he saw a different double cicada piece that I had done. I think I had done it in maybe red and purple. And he said, I want this, but I want it all in red, which is a choice that I would have probably never made on my own. But it came out really cool.
It is really cool. I love that.
I've always loved that combination of red and black. These are two different cicadas, yeah?
Yeah, two different species. And I try and match them up, size-wise, because the black one's a little bit bigger, but I tried to get as close as I could just so they mirrored each other well.
Do you know off the top of your head how many different species of cicadas there are?
A lot. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly.
A lot works. I like
that.
Do you know the species of both of these?
I'd have to look. I do have the scientific names for them, but not on hand.
Just curious. I can't imagine keeping track of all this stuff, but doing this work all the time, I'm sure you're just constantly educating yourself. Yeah.
It's really interesting. For my show before last, called Mutations, I made like little science plaques for each one that had the scientific name of each of the species. So that was kind of fun.
That is fun.
That is really cool. I like that. Oh, and by the way, Todd, it's 3,390 different species of cicada.
Wow.
There's
awesome. A lot. Yeah.
Holy
moly.
A
lot works.
Yeah, a lot. Nice.
That was very accurate.
Yeah. I'm glad you looked that up, Wes. Outside of Next and social media, I assume people find your website, but do you show in any other galleries?
From time to time I do. I have a show in August at Valkyrie. I'll be the guest artist for, I think, October. So I haven't shown there before, and so that's pretty exciting.
Fantastic. I definitely will go check that out.
Yeah. I think I'm showing with Valerie. So.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
So it'll be you'll be the guest artist, Valerie, and I think Nicole that we just had on. So that'll be a phenomenal show.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you about this project that I saw called After the Flood and how you got involved with that. Talk a little bit about how that all came about.
Yeah. So I've basically known Patrick Mueller, their director, since I was like probably 15. My best friend from elementary school and his mom married his dad. So I've known him forever, since we were kids. And so he started working on After the Flood, and, he was thinking about, who do I know that's an artist who works with natural materials. And that natural materials bit was a very important piece to this performance art. And so he called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to collaborate with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, this sounds amazing." And it's nothing I've ever done before, doing costume design, doing wearables. And so it was a challenge to learn how things are going to work when people are in motion. And so now I have this under my belt, and I just think it's the coolest.
So explain what exactly you did for this project.
Yeah. So Patrick knew that I had, worked with a lot of antlers and things like that. And so he said, I need this like antler headdress. And so I found some cool antlers. He said, I want the tone to reflect the river that they did the performance piece on. And so, I gathered a lot of moss. Again, I used fish vertebrae, mushrooms, and it was really just a trial and error kind of situation. And I learned a ton, and it was really fun.
So was it challenging to take these things that are, there's something that are part of another animal and make it so that somebody could actually move around with these, protrusions of these antlers on top of their head without it falling off?
It was incredibly challenging. And we went through many iterations to try and get it stable enough, because those things are not light. I did several other, I think I did 5 other headdresses where we used branches instead of real antlers, and those were lighter. That was a little bit easier, but this one definitely took many, many fittings, many structural ideas. We worked together on how to structure it so it wouldn't flop around and fall off. And it was a process.
And I assumed you had to customize it to this woman that's actually wearing it. It's not like anybody could put it on their head, probably, right?
Well, the front piece is like a Velcro, so it is adjustable to a certain extent. I did have to adjust it for her because Patrick wants to now keep it for himself and possibly other performers in the future. So, he might come back to me at some point and say, hey, can we make this just a little bit bigger? Or can we adjust this or whatever, depending on who's going to wear it.
So you would do it again if the opportunity arose?
Yeah. It depends on what my workload is like, honestly. I'm trying to not take on too much. So it would all just depend on what my schedule is like.
Sure. And so he actually ended up with this piece and he uses it for other performances that he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was, I actually invited him to show some photography at my show. So I shared my space with him. So that was kind of the culmination of after the performance, we showed photographs of a different project that he did called Burn Scar, where he is wearing this headdress also. And so and there was a video that went along with it. So we actually got to show in the gallery together after the performance was done. So that was cool.
Wow. It's amazing. I'm amazed at the creativity.
Thank you.
I'm amazed at, we say this all the time, but I'm just amazed at the way different people's minds work. I'm always fascinated by the process to get them to where they're at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one took months to get right.
I'm sure it's exquisite. I'd like to see it in person sometime.
Yeah, ask Patrick.
So you're a huge science fiction fan. Who do you like as far as science fiction writers?
My gosh. So many. I love Jeff Vandermeer, who's more of a contemporary writer. Ursula Le Guin is amazing. I grew up on sci-fi, so I read, Ray Bradbury was a huge influence for me. I mostly read contemporary sci-fi these days, which there's just so much out there that's so good.
How has that changed? What's contemporary sci-fi compared to, like Ray Bradbury's time?
I think that there's certain themes that are coming up more often, and one of them is climate change. It's huge. There's so many sci-fis based around climate change. There's also a lot more stuff around alternate dimensions, because that's something that scientifically is, progressed much more than it ever was like in the 60s or 70s. So I think those are two big themes that I'm seeing.
Yeah. What's your favorite sci-fi movie?
Oh, I love 28 Days Later. I'm a huge zombie fan as well. Yeah. The cinematography is just gorgeous in that movie.
Yeah, that is a good one. So mine is The Thing with, from the 80s.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen that one?
Is it? Well, tell me what the creature looks like.
Well, it starts in the dogs, in the dog, and then it morphs itself into whoever its host is.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's taking place in Antarctica.
Okay, yeah.
Science group. Kurt Russell's in it.
Oh, I may need to revisit that.
Oh, you need to see that. My favorite. And I've seen the Thing from the 50s. That's interesting. And Matt Dillon, who on Gunsmoke played the Thing. Oh. And then they've redone it again. It's not, and it's good too. But that one, the one made in the 80s, yeah, you got to see that. I think the storyline is just amazing.
Okay,
and,
all right.
And the ending is really good too.
Okay, I'm writing it down.
Yeah, The Thing.
Do you remember a movie called Night of the Comet from the 80s?
Yes.
Oh my God, that thing terrorized me when I was a kid.
It's a great movie. They're in the movie theater and they don't get it. Yeah. And then it's like avoiding all the craziness.
Like no one in my generation has seen that. And I'm like, it scared me so bad.
Nobody under 50 has watched it.
I've never heard of that movie.
Oh my God, that's such a great movie. And I wish I could think of the actress because she was really cute in it too. And I can't remember her name. But yeah, that's a good one. Night of the Comet.
Yep.
Do you ever experience like creative blocks?
Honestly, not really. I'm kind of overflowing to the point where I want to make all the things and I don't have time to make all the things. I have motivation issues sometimes, but I don't feel like I ever have creative blocks.
Gotcha. And were you always that kid that was just industrious, just like always doing something?
Mm-hmm. Me and my sister did all kinds of crazy projects. My sister's an artist as well. She's a brilliant oil painter. And so, yeah, we were always just doing creative stuff. And, you know, my parents instilled creativity in us and, you know, read us all the sci-fi. And so, yeah, that's just kind of how I grew up.
And then I got to ask you, because at some point when I started following you, I saw this is probably something that was happening before. What was the infatuation with mold and that sort of thing?
I think when I started doing, you know, messing around with macro photography, I started paying closer attention to these patterns that I was seeing. And I was like, wow, mold is actually kind of really beautiful. And so, yeah, I started photographing it. I think it's really cool. And it's part of our ecosystem. It's part of, you know, these microorganisms are part of our bodies and they fascinate me.
The whole world is bacteria, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've got them living all over on us and in us, and they kind of make life possible in a lot of ways.
Right. Yeah. When you started posting, you know, on occasion things on Facebook and what have you, I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so interesting, you know? Mm-hmm. And then I saw other artists like interacting with you, you know, like talking about it. And I think I saw one artist, our friend Georgia Amar, I think had commented on some of your posts, and she was like, just be very careful with that stuff, you know? And I hadn't thought about it, but I mean,
after I got some feedback from people about, you know, I knew mold could be dangerous. Like, so I joined some, you know, mold groups and started learning more. And so now I'm very careful with the mold.
So I got to ask you, so there's a whole group of people that are just fascinated by mold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's mold identification groups. There's food mold groups that just photograph food mold for the hell of it. Like, it's pretty cool.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. There's something for everybody, and the internet is a game changer, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because you could be wandering around in your town, right, halfway across the world, and be the only person that's fascinated by mold. But now with the internet, you can be connected by 100,000 people that are fascinated by mold.
I know. And it's like, who knew there would be that many people out there that into mold?
Right. Oh my God. My daughter could not see this photograph that I have up right now without like losing it.
Yeah.
She literally, I can even just say the word mold and she gets nauseous. Like she like starts the gag reflex, and I'm like, what are you doing? But yeah, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm always, you know, I'm the guy that cleans out the refrigerator. So I'm always finding little science projects in my refrigerator, stuff that got lost in the back of the refrigerator.
I think Kyra needs to be cleaning out the refrigerator.
Yeah, right, dude.
So, you know, and the other interesting thing is like, I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking to a lady that studies fungi in trees and how they communicate, you know, miles away in groves of trees, and how the trees communicate through this fungi. And I think that's just absolutely fascinating.
I'm obsessed with that. And I think I'm debating between which direction I want to go for my next show. It's either going to be all about fungi and molds, or, you know, go a little more the photography route and incorporate some, you know, different elements of nature into that. But I've been starting to do research, and I'm definitely going to get some slime mold spores and try to do a collaboration with it, because it's incredible stuff.
Doesn't sound incredible.
No, it
just doesn't. The name.
Interestingly enough, though, it's not slime or mold.
Okay.
Really? So what is it? It's just a fungi?
It's a single-celled organism. It's not a fungi either. It's okay. They like don't know how to classify it, because it's not any of those things. So it's a single-celled organism that can come together and make one big organism. And it does this during a certain time in its life cycle, and it moves. It goes out and finds food. It like wanders around the forest floor and finds its food.
That just sounds like the beginning of Body Snatchers to me.
It's very sci-fi.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It is.
I can't wait to see where you go with that.
I would love to have some live slime molds in the gallery. We'll see if I can pull it off.
Go ahead, Wes.
I just one quick question. So how big are these slime molds?
I mean, they can be huge. It depends on how much food's available.
So what do you mean by huge? Size of a dog?
They can turn into globs. Like
really? Like the size of a house cat?
Yeah. Oh, easily.
Wow. My new pet.
Yeah.
Slime mold.
I'm going to get a new pet slime mold.
So, all right, Todd. Thank you for humoring me.
And how does Ryan react to all this stuff?
Sometimes I'll show him something and he'll just go, gross.
That'd be me. Slime mold. I'm out.
Well, I think it's fascinating, but I'm the dad, and so I get all the gross jobs all the time. So here, is this still good? Come smell this. What's that smell like to you? I don't want to smell that. Well, no, right? Come on, smell that.
I will say though, if he finds something moldy, he sets it aside for me because he knows I'm going to want to photograph it.
No, I go crazy with the bleach. It's just not what you're supposed to do, but yeah.
One of the other things that I know you do with your artwork, and I'm gonna pull up this image, is that you, and I don't know if this is part of your workflow these days, but you grow crystals on some of these creations.
Yeah, I was toying around with that for a while, and then and I put a good year into working on stuff like that. It's very tedious. You have to, mix all the chemicals, and I was getting concerned about the fumes, even though I was wearing a respirator when I was working with stuff. But I felt like it wasn't maybe not the healthiest thing for me to be doing. But I learned a lot and it was really neat. And then I kind of moved on from it.
Well, I think it's just fascinating. And this piece that we're looking at is just stunning. Like I can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the crystals made out of?
I think those are just borax. So you can just buy borax in the grocery store.
Okay.
But the problem with borax crystals is that they turn white even if they're sealed. And so I started painting them, which is where you're kind of seeing a, gradient on this one.
Mm.
And then I moved on to using alum, it's a food preservative, I believe. Also, you can just buy it in the grocery store. You can buy it in large quantities. It's also used in like fabric dyeing, and it grows really neat crystals as well. And I got into a few different other chemicals that would grow purple or blue. But it's totally hit or miss. Like you make your concoction and it's heated and you think it's right. And then what I was doing was suspending the cicadas in the solution. And then you have to wait like 8 hours and you have to make it cool very, very slowly. So the crystals have the chance to bond with each other and grow. So it was very scientific. It was also, I must have spent just months on ones that weren't going to work because they didn't come out quite right. So it's totally, you don't have a whole lot of control over the process.
I think they're fascinating. And so when you were experimenting with the alum, that's a food preservative, even that can be toxic. Is that right?
Yes. If it heats too hot, which I did this and it was scary, there's a chemical reaction at a certain temperature and it kind of like explodes a little bit. And so I didn't know that. And I was doing it in my kitchen, which was just a bad idea. And the fumes were pretty bad. And that's what scared me into kind of being like, maybe I should at least do some more research before I start messing around with this anymore.
And obviously you're doing stuff with it that most people wouldn't be doing it, but still this is something that's put in some of our food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the food grade stuff, you just use like a little bit of it. I think you can use it in pickling maybe. So yeah, I mean, it's even non-toxic things can be toxic.
Interesting. Wow. So part scientist, part artist.
For sure.
I love that.
Yeah. And there's organizations coming about that are dealing with bioart, that are dealing with the convergence of art and science, and, finding these organizations and, finding out who's working in those veins. There's not many of us out there. And so when I find someone who's working in the same vein, I get really excited about it.
I bet. It's like finding your tribe, right?
Yep.
We're still in the midst of this pandemic, even though we act like there's no pandemic anymore. And at the very beginning, I think across the board, people were, scared. They were unsure. There was a lot of factors that changed for artists and turned their world upside down. Talk about how the pandemic affected you.
Yeah. So pretty early on, my show got canceled because we had to close the gallery for a decent amount of time. And Christy Seving, who you guys know, her show was in that cancellation time when we were closed. And so I said, you know what? I need a break. Why don't you take my spot for this year? And she gladly accepted. And so I didn't have a show, which opened up my schedule even more than it already was. And I was feeling really at a loss as to what I wanted to make, because my work, my environmental work, started to feel a little frivolous and unimportant in light of what was going on with the virus. In hindsight, I know it's not, and the environment is an incredibly pressing issue. But at the time, it just felt like a little bit like it wasn't the pertinent thing that was happening. And so I started making these masks because I wanted to, just explore what masks could do in an artistic way. And I didn't have anyone else to work off of or work with. And so I used myself as the model for all of these. And I started making self-portraits about the pandemic. And I thought, I wonder if anybody else would be interested in exploring this kind of self-expression through masking. And, I reached out to my next community, and there was some interest there. People said, yeah, that sounds like a cool idea. Maybe we should work on that and do like an online show or something, And so I said, all right, cool. So I set up an Instagram account called Pandemic Self-Portraits and started kind of getting the word out. And I started getting submissions like very quickly. I started it on May 3rd, 2020. Within 2 to 3 weeks, it had gone international. And I was getting submissions from all over the world. And I was just amazed by how many people were creating their own self-portraits during the pandemic.
Wow. And this picture that I have up, it's a mask made out of seed pods.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just one of many that you did?
I think I did 3 altogether.
Okay.
And then I started working on the project, which consumed all my time.
I can imagine, because I saw it start to take off, and
Mm-hmm.
I see your posts of various portraits that people have sent you.
Mm-hmm.
This is amazing. This one's called breathing apparatus. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what kind of pods are those?
Oh, I'd have to look at the exact name. I think I ordered them. They originated in Africa, I believe. And I just wanted to create something that was in my style, but that was entirely new to me in terms of, again, this is kind of the wearable art that maybe moved me into creating costumes. But so, yeah, when I made this, I just wanted it to reflect my sensibilities, but to be something very specific to the pandemic.
I think it's amazing and incredibly cool.
Thank you.
I could not show this picture to my daughter again, because she has that, what is it called?
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember what it's called.
Trypophobia.
Yes. And you would not believe how many people tell me that they have that and can't look at my work.
I'm fascinated by that. I have to mess with her, right? I'm always like, I wonder what lives in those little holes. Like I want to see if there's like bugs in there or something like that. Yeah. She goes, it freaks her out. It gives her anxiety, actually, to the point where I don't mess with her anymore, because it's a legitimate fear. And my son has that to a certain extent as well. He's like, I don't want to look at that. Yeah.
It's like a diagnosable thing.
And I think it dates back to the beginning of man and being fearful of things that, would live in holes that would kill you. Right.
Yeah.
Like, don't stick your finger in there. Don't stick your hand in there, because you don't know what's living in there.
Right.
That's very cool. And so what are some of the other masks that you made? Are they all made of like pods or other natural materials?
I did another one that was it almost looked like a flower coming out of my mouth, but it was it kind of looks like the virus itself coming out of my mouth. That was made with millinery stamen, which are basically just artificial stamens, like plant parts and stuff. And so I did that one. And then I was also working on another seed pod one that I actually never completed.
Okay.
Because the project took off and I was like all consumed.
This is it?
Yep, that's the one.
Oh, that's cool.
That's creepy too.
Yep, totally creepy.
I love what it says here, but man, it is kind of creepy looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah. It really is.
I showed it to my mom and she was like, oh my God.
I could see that like a horror movie representation of the pandemic there. Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So you've had submissions from all over the world. Do you know how many submissions you've received?
Over 700.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. From pretty much every country.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so it started off as kind of an online exhibit of people sending this stuff, and then you would post it, and they would write stuff about, how they're feeling, right?
Yeah. So part of the submission process, I would send out like guidelines for how to structure it and everything. And so I'd say, tell me where you're from, and tell me a little bit about your experience during the pandemic. And sometimes I would find portraits that people had created, just because I did a ton of research looking for people working in the same vein. And I would say, this is amazing. Do you want to be a part of this project? Would you like to write something to accompany it? And so the storytelling aspect of it became a very important component in the project.
I love that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then you were able to facilitate a handful of shows of this work as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't even contact any galleries, and a couple galleries in Denver just reached out and were like, hey, do you want to do a showing of this? And I was like, God, I never even thought of that. Sure. So I selected pieces, and I did a couple little shows, and then all the work was included in the Arvada Center as well.
And so did you just take the digital files and get prints made yourself and then have them framed, or how did that work?
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of them were like those tiles that you can get printed. And so they're like thick mounted on like foam core. Just because I didn't have any budget to do any framing or anything like that. But then when it came to the Arvada show, I did get all of those frames. I think there was 30 pieces from the project included at the Arvada Center.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And were you amazed just how much it took off and how much people wanted to be a part of it and the press that you got?
Totally. I had no idea. I was just messing around and, trying to make work that felt relevant to me at the time. And there was almost this hunger to want to connect and to want to tell stories about what was going on, behind the scenes during this time. And the honesty and the humor and the vulnerability that people were willing to share was just humbling.
And you used a word that I thought of immediately when I'm looking at some of these portraits and reading about some of the stuff, but vulnerability, like being able to, it's one thing to take this picture of you when you're out on the town or whatever people do. I don't do selfies typically, but you know what I'm saying? It's like they got the duck face or the duck lips or whatever, and they got the right angle. And, I look at my my daughter, and she's got it down to a T. She knows exactly how she has to do it.
Right.
But I mean, to put yourself in this position where you're sharing something very intimate with the world, essentially.
Yeah. And, all of these people essentially invited the viewers into their homes because that's where all of these photographs took place, or, in paintings or drawings. And I think, it was something that we were going through collectively, and that opened up so much room for connection in terms of, people from all over the world, people from different walks of life having the same exact experience.
And you know what? I'm glad you clarified that, because they're not just selfies or photographs. They're like you said, drawings, paintings, or whatever art form that people they do, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And some of the masks that people created are just amazing sculptural works of art.
You posted, I think yesterday or recently, that this was one of your favorites. Tell me, and you can find this right off on the Pandemic self-portrait Instagram. Why does this resonate with you?
I think in a lot of ways, COVID was a unifier. It doesn't discriminate. It affected each and every one of us, and it doesn't matter what your economic situation is. It doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. And so this just resonated so much because maybe we haven't gone through something like this in recollective time for, none of us remember an event like this. And so I think that to open your heart, to allow it to become a unifying event instead of a destroying event, was something positive that came out of it.
And this one is Phoenix Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Is she from the United States? Do you know? Or
she never told me her location. She didn't want to.
Okay. Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, she, in reading this, yes, COVID-19 does care if you have a pre-existing condition. Yes, COVID-19 does prefer to infect an older body over a younger one. Yes, COVID-19 does attack the destitute, the uneducated, and the uninformed more often than anyone else. But let me tell you something, COVID-19 doesn't give a damn about your race, your orientation, your religion, or your gender. Mm-hmm. Exactly what you just spelled out. And then, she goes on to talk about, the government's role in all this and how it affects people. So really interesting, compelling portrait for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Just amazing. And, it was, I just think it's amazing that people are so willing to share these things that are tough subjects. And again, I think that COVID was a unifier in that way.
It was weird, the onset of it, right? Like nobody had any idea what it was about, how easily you could be infected by it. I remember.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I remember at the beginning, all of a sudden I was quarantining my own family and I was the guy to go out to do the grocery shopping because I didn't want anybody else being exposed. And I'm wearing latex gloves and a mask and actually a mask that, at the beginning, nobody really knew what kind of mask you should have. So it was just one of those little buffs, which probably didn't do anything as far as protecting me from anything.
Right.
I mean, you felt like you should have some kind of hazmat suit on or something, but we don't have access to that. So what is this thing,
Yep. Yeah. At the time, my mom was taking care of my elderly grandfather, and she would go to the grocery store. She would change her clothes in the shed outside, put on new clothes before she came inside, because he was very vulnerable to the virus. If he got it, he wouldn't be able to survive it. And so she took every measure possible to protect him, which, it was a lot of work, but it was really sweet and, wonderful at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now that you mentioned, I'd forgotten, it wasn't that long ago, but I remember coming home from Costco shopping, and I would, get all the groceries. We never wiped down our groceries or anything like that. But when I was out in public, then I'd go take a shower, right? And the laundry would immediately go into the washing machine because we had no idea what was going on.
Yep, totally. It was a frightening time.
Yeah. It was for sure.
And it feels so long ago. I mean, it doesn't feel like it was just 2 years ago. Well, it's still going on.
And it's interesting because now I'm in the process of making the book version of this project. And so I'm going back through and reading all the stories and editing and stuff like that. And it's really fascinating to read back and, to remember that time we were all in.
Yeah. Well, this is a great way of documenting how we went through or what we went through. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is going to be an important piece historically.
And that's my intention. It's a snapshot of that moment in time. And most all of these portraits were created pre-vaccine. And so, it really captures what it was like before we had a vaccine, before we knew what was going on. And I really am trying to capture it for posterity and as a historical document.
Yeah.
This is a great one here. Talk about this. This is from a local artist. Well, she lives in Israel now, right?
I don't actually personally know her, I don't think.
Oh, you don't?
Uh-uh.
I've just met her once. Donna Barak, I think is how you pronounce her last name. But yeah, she just recently relocated from Denver. I just happened to pull this one up because I thought it was really compelling and didn't realize it was hers. It's really interesting. Cool. So this book, how are you facilitating this? You're just it's self-funded? You had a Kickstarter?
I did a Kickstarter and so my first run is funded. And how it's going to work is once the book is finished and I think I'm going to get 25 or 50 hard copies just for here, to sell at the gallery or whatever. Then it'll be available online, and the publishing company that I'm working with will have it on Amazon. I'll also have my own page through them where you can just purchase the book as well.
And then how much will the book sell for?
I have to see what final production costs are going to be, but probably between like $45 and $50, I believe. Yeah, and it's beautiful hardcover. There are about 175 artists included in it.
Okay. Was it hard to edit it down to that manageable number?
It was so hard. There's so many that I want to include. I want to include all of them. There's so many that I want to include that I just can't afford to, it can't be a 500-page book. It has to be around 200 pages.
Mm-hmm. And so to get this printed, are you having it printed overseas or are you able to do it locally? How does that work?
So I'm using a company called Book Baby, and they're in the United States. I'm not sure what state they're in. And so then so it's basically a print on demand. So once you place your order, they print the copy right there for you and ship it out to you. They'll also market internationally. So it'll be available in other countries. They'll ship to other countries. And I think like I can order it at wholesale if I want to like sell it in bookstores or anything like that locally. So.
And so when will this be available, do you think? Are you still in the layout stages or is it all done?
So it is just about done. I am so very close. And, because I have a graphic design background, it's been lovely that I could lay out the whole thing myself, but I've never published a book before. And so it's been a huge learning process. It's taking way longer than I thought it was going to. The other piece involved in this is that I had to contact each and every artist that I wanted to include in the book, have them sign a contract, go through all that rigmarole. And so managing a group of almost 200 artists and their individual work was a lot, a lot more than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, it's taken me a lot longer than expected, but it is coming soon. It has been edited by a professional editor. It is completely laid out. The only things I have left to do is basically add all the copyright information and write the index and the introduction, and then it should be good to go.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, Wes's wife is a graphic designer, and she's laying out a book, or she's laid out a couple books actually for a project I'm working on. And then we've talked to some other people that have self-published books, and it's an arduous task. And thank God it's not up to me because it would never happen.
I know. There's been times that I was worried. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. How am I going to finish this?
But, it's great that you're getting this experience, and whether or not you do it again or not, I mean, at least the process, and, and that in itself, I would imagine would be really wonderful. And when it's finished, it'll be this phenomenal thing that you're able to share with people. And, for that, I think it's just amazing. And so it'll be available via Amazon, you said?
Yep. And my publishing company will put up like an individual page that you can go directly to them and buy from as well.
And so then you'll just have like a link on your social media and on your website to go to those places.
Yep. And I'll probably do a local book launch as well, maybe at the gallery. So that, I'll have some copies available for people to purchase that way as well.
Oh, fantastic. You'll have to let us know when that happens, and we'll definitely help promote it.
Okay, for sure.
So you think it'll be available sometime by the summer? Yeah,
I'm going to say by the summer. I'm hoping in the next month or two.
Okay.
Nice.
Was it hard did they give you like a proof of the book before you actually?
Yeah, so I can order one proof. It's totally affordable. So I'll do that first. And then if everything looks good, I'm going to have my editor look at it just one last time. And then if everything looks good, we'll do a bigger run.
So did you edit it all yourself as far as the pieces, or did you have help from other artist friends? Like
choosing the work?
Yeah.
I had help. I needed help. So my best friend is a woman who I went to art school with, and she's great at, she's got a wonderful eye. So she helps me out. I recruited a couple other people from the gallery to just send me 10 of your favorite pieces. And that made things easier for sure.
It looked like a lot of Kickstarter campaigns struggle, right, to meet their goal, but it didn't seem like that was the case with what you were doing here. Is that true?
Yeah. And I didn't ask for a tremendous amount of money. I think it was $2,500 just to get the project off the ground. And I reached my goal. So that was just a lovely surprise. And there was lots of people in the Denver community who helped out with that. So I'm super thankful.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Denver art community?
I mean, I think it's wonderful. I'm not super familiar with any other cities' art scenes per se, but ours is just been amazing. Like I think everyone is really supportive of each other. We all, like, especially at Next, we all help each other out. We have critique groups, which is so valuable. It's something that you kind of lose after you leave art school. And so, we have that available to people in our community. And it's just a wonderful place to live and to work.
How often you guys get together and do the whole critique thing?
I think they have it set up for every other month right now. So if you're working on something and you're stuck or need feedback, we, meet up and talk about it.
That's really nice to have that sort of thing.
Yeah, very nice.
What else are you excited about in the coming months as far as either your work? Obviously, we just talked about the pandemic self-portrait book. Anything else that you're excited between now and the end of the year that's happening?
I mean, I think it's the show at Valkyrie. My show at Next will be at the end of November. And like I said, I'm still kind of toying with solidifying which direction I'm going to go. But I'm excited to see where it heads. If it's a photography show, that's going to be something that's really different for me. So I'm definitely excited to see how that would turn out.
So the next show happens in November, and you said the Valkyrie show happens in October?
Yeah, I think it opens like August 30th.
Oh, August. Okay.
Yeah, but I think like the official opening is like October or something. Beginning of October.
Okay. All righty. Anything else that you want to talk about this evening?
Geez, I think we covered a lot.
Wes, you got anything else that you want to talk about?
So just a kind of a fun question. So what brings you hope?
Hope?
Yeah. What brings you hope?
When I was writing my artist statement for my last show, the last line of it was, my work is for hope, because it is. It's hope that people will recognize how special what we have here is, and respect it. And I just hope that people will be in awe of it as much as I am.
Well, we love your work, and I'm excited to see it in person. I know Todd has, but I'm excited to see your work and your future stuff and your projects and the book when it's finally released. So
yes, I'm very excited about the book.
Yeah. No, that's great. So thank you so much for spending this time with us. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Adrienne, it's been an absolute honor to be able to spend this time this evening with you. I know that you're absolutely beloved in the art community here. Not only you're part of the Next Collective, but artists outside of that love your work and love what you've done with this pandemic self-portrait project. Thank you for spending time with us this evening. And I look forward to seeing you in person, and I definitely will make it to your next show. And thank you for agreeing and working this out so that you were able to spend time with us, because like I said, you've been someone I've been wanting to talk to since, pretty much the beginning of the podcast. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Again, check out Adrienne's work at her website, adriennedeloe.com, and her Instagram at @DeLoeArt. And be sure to, of course, visit the Pandemic Self-Portraits page on Instagram at Pandemic Self-Portraits. As always, all of this information can be had in this week's episode notes. And for the Tenet Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown. Have a great week.